Hey, what's up, St. Michael's? No, I haven't turned into some crazy YouTuber. I want to talk to you about WhatsApp, and in particular, the way we're using WhatsApp in school and how some people are maybe misusing it a little bit, and just give you a bit of advice and a few nuggets of information to help you use it a little bit more effectively. So, what is WhatsApp? Well, it's a free messaging app. Although when they say free, nothing ever really comes for free. There's always a price of free, and we'll look a bit more into what is that price in a little while. It's owned by Facebook, so Facebook is the company that sort out the software, manage the updates, and control how the thing works. And let's just move this over into the corner. We also know, hopefully, that its minimum age for use is recommended at 16. So there's a reason for that. Basically, because of the way the the privacy laws work in this country and in the EU, they're not allowed to, I suppose, look at or sell, if you like, or gather data about children's personal preferences, habits, and interests for marketing purposes. Now, we did say that WhatsApp is sort of owned by Facebook. So they provide this service for free because that data about your habits and interests and who you're socializing with in your groups goes off and becomes information for Facebook to help Facebook decide what to put on people's feeds, and also maybe not just Facebook, but in other ways as well. Now, the law is that they're not allowed to do that for children under 16. So, what Facebook and WhatsApp have done is say, okay, well, our app is for 16-year-olds in that case, because that's what we do. So obviously that's the way they've stated it. They stated it as being for 16. I know many of you actually use WhatsApp for your day-to-day communication with friends and family. And in fact, when we look at what the parents think would be a suitable age for WhatsApp, a lot of parents say about 13 is the time to start using it. And of those children that are 13, 14, 15, they would say that children of 11 plus sort of can start using this safely. So we'll look at that. We'll look at what using WhatsApp safely means and how to use it safely. And we'll look at some of the things that can go wrong as well. So with WhatsApp, it is the second most popular app in the world, which makes it, in terms of messaging, the most popular. So Facebook is the most popular app in the world. WhatsApp is the second most popular app in the world. And as of this year, WhatsApp now has over 2 billion regular users that are using the platform every month. It's a little bit different to your standard messaging services, your SMS messaging on your phone, because it doesn't use your mobile network or your mobile data. If there's Wi-Fi around, it will use the Wi-Fi network and save money that way, effectively, because ultimately you're paying for your broadband and you're connecting to Wi-Fi for free elsewhere. Interestingly, during the COVID lockdown, WhatsApp grew worldwide by about 40%. So by that we mean that it got about 40% increase in its use over the lockdown, which isn't surprising because we're all staying in touch with people remotely much more than we would normally. And in fact, in Spain, it grew by 76% over that lockdown period. So different countries under different circumstances suddenly finding a specific use for WhatsApp because of its many features. And clearly it's absolutely taken off and helped people with their communication with friends and family over that lockdown period. I may have already mentioned that it's owned by Facebook. That's a recurring theme because of that use of data and the information that is being fed to Facebook to help them in their quest to know everything about us. Okay. So where does WhatsApp fit in our world of apps? So I've already mentioned that it's sort of a little bit different to the SMS texting. And what it does is sit quite nicely in the middle between SMS, where we're sending the text messages. We can also send pictures, obviously, and we can send videos, and we can send to groups, a bit like we can with emails. But it's a little bit more than that, in that we've got some social dimensions in there as well, insofar as we can see each other, what we're doing, we can monitor each other and get a little bit of feedback and send personal messages that way as well. So it's sort of just sits in the middle between those sort of three types of things. And by Facebook, you can replace that with Instagram or Snapchat or whatever in terms of what's going on. So why is it so popular? Well, it's a great app, isn't it? It's really easy to use, really simple. It's relatively safe compared to some of the social media sites, which are sort of, so we say, pretty much open for trolling, in terms of, you get these bad actors, so-called bad actors, these people that are just creating abusive messages to people and just making a nuisance of themselves. So it is a safer app in terms of what you're doing, but it depends also how you use it in terms of controlling that safety. There's wide familiarity of it. So in terms of your friends and family, pretty much everyone has it. So if you want to communicate with them, you need it too. So for that reason, it's obviously taken off. And increasingly now, lots of organizations are using it to run events and control communications or disseminate, share information between people. Now there's new ways to join groups with invitation codes, links, and you can even just take a picture of a QR code and you'll be joined into a group. And on the surface, it seems really, really simple to use. Someone pretty inexperienced can just pick it up and get on with the messaging, and it's pretty obvious and easy to use. So very intuitive, but it does have some really nice power features that just enable you to do a few more things than that basic messaging sort of system. Okay, so what's going on with WhatsApp? Well, it has become a bit of an issue in terms of distributing fake news. So what's happening is lots of people, people belong to multiple groups. Some fake news is being posted in one group, and they're going, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh my God, I can't believe that." And then they're forwarding it onto another group, and then they're forwarding it onto another group, and so on. So this fake news sort of gets pushed around, and WhatsApp, it seems at the moment, is one of those key drivers for that fake news. We know that because somebody else, generally it's somebody that we know in the groups that we belong to, so we tend to sort of believe those stories a little bit more. And because your groups are quite small, you probably haven't got a specialist in lots of different areas, so people are probably less likely to point it out as fake news as well, and criticize somebody else for maybe forwarding something. So with that, the social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook, they've been asked or driven by governments to put systems in place to stop the fake news from spreading. So they've got computers monitoring the words that are used in their messages and trying to spot the fake news and do something about it, because it's obviously causing a problem in our society, people believing things that just aren't true. One example, for instance, all the 5G masts, there's the 80 5G masts now that have been set fire to or pulled down in this country, just because of this fake news rumor spreading, and that's pretty dangerous, and it's ruining infrastructure. So we've got to think carefully about the way we use our social media, and WhatsApp is included in that to make sure that we're not involved in this fake news spread, if you like. So important to do that. So obviously on the bigger social media sites, you've got hundreds or thousands of people looking at something, and it's much easier, I think, for people to go, "That's rubbish," especially when there's people that they don't know necessarily that have posted things. So what about WhatsApp in school then? So WhatsApp is the main cause of friendship issues on social media in school, by a factor of 10. WhatsApp is the issue, really. We have occasional other apps that pop up with a few problems being caused by it, but in general, it's stuff that happens on WhatsApp that's the problem. Now, that doesn't make WhatsApp a bad application. It's just simply that people aren't using it very wisely, and it's okay to make mistakes, but now we're making mistakes in an environment with groups, so our mistakes are amplified, and it causes hurt and it causes pain. And so we're just going to have a look at ways to use it a little bit more appropriately. Okay, so one of the big issues is the groups in school. Now, some people have set groups up and invited people to groups, and that's great because they can choose if they join that group or not. And fine, but it's when people assign people to groups without asking them, that's the real problem. And some people end up being joined to groups that are massive, and huge groups do not work on Facebook, on WhatsApp. It simply isn't designed for that in a school environment where people are socializing. Yes, you can have a group of 100 or more, but it's for an event. It's a short-lived thing, and everybody knows that it's just to organize the event, and then once the event's done and over, they leave the group. I mean, those large groups where people are posting all the time generally end up with something like this. People belong to multiple groups. There's too many in the group. People join other people to groups. They don't want to be joined, and it becomes crazy. Excuse me. So you can see here, you've got 180 unread messages from this group. And obviously that's confusing. It takes time to get through. And it may have been a group they didn't even want to belong to. So using groups is really one of the key problems, because we should be using groups for our social group, not as a way of going, right, we have a whole year group that can have comment on every social thing that happens in the school. It just is a really bad idea. Okay, so let's have some rules then. So general rules apply for anything you do online, and that is that hopefully before you post a photo or video of someone that maybe you've taken, you think, oh, that's funny, you shouldn't post it without getting their permission first. If they're happy for it to be posted to that group or online in some way, then great, but get their permission. Hopefully you all know that. And likewise, if you're going to add a person to a group, it's because they've asked to be added, not because you think, oh, I bet they'll like that. Talk to them first and say, would you like to be involved in this group? And if they say yes, then great, add them. But otherwise, don't just go adding people just because you want to control or be admin on a group that's got loads and loads of people. Belonging to more than 7 groups at once is really fairly catastrophic in terms of trying to manage what's going on, trying to keep in your head what's going on in each group, and compartmentalizing the conversation to that group, which is appropriate to that group of people. Certainly there's stuff I would say on one group which might be a joke that one group of people might get, but I certainly wouldn't use it, for instance, with my mother-in-law. So you've got to adapt your conversation, haven't you, to the group as appropriate. And if you don't, people can take offense. Now, and the other thing is, if people decide to opt out and leave your group, don't go adding them back in, because that's really, they've left for a reason. So don't add them unless they particularly ask you to. But we're seeing that over and over again. People are trying to leave groups, and other people are just trying to add them back in because they've not thought about the administration or the admin rights of that group, and they've given it to too many people. It's a problem, so please don't do it. So what to do then if things go wrong? So if you start to get upset by messages or conversations that are happening in a group, maybe about you, or just conversations about other people or things in general, then consider the following. Take a screenshot of the messages, because sometimes people can be a bit nasty in what they say, maybe deliberately so, maybe accidentally. But if you see that going on, take a screenshot. That way, if they delete it and you've taken offense to it, you can at least talk that through with your teacher or a parent, and then ask them, what's a reasonable course of action and how to respond to this. And usually the reasonable course of action is to go and talk to that person sensibly and calmly and say what effect it's had on you, not to respond with some other angry message. That's obviously a disaster waiting to happen. The other thing is, if people are repeatedly offending you, then leave the group, maybe even block them, and we'll look at how to block them in a little while. Maybe block them and just change your privacy settings so they can't see some of the extra information about you. But we'll get to that in a little while. But there are things, if things start to go wrong, definitely take your screenshot and talk to people. So blocking a contact. This is a bit weird, because if you've got someone that's really annoying you and you want to block them on WhatsApp, you have to have them saved in your contacts. So I don't know about you, but I probably wouldn't want to block someone that was in my contacts. I'd want to block someone that wasn't in my contacts. So it's a slightly funny situation. So if you do need to block someone, you have to add them to your contacts. And then once you've done that in your contacts, you can just say block, and then they won't be able to send you any messages or anything. So funny one, but that's the way it works at the moment. There's lots of privacy issues. Now, obviously, we're using WhatsApp as a communication tool, and it sort of makes sense to share the information about ourselves, about the fact we've read a message or that we when we last used WhatsApp and things like that, or that we're typing. But if you don't want to do that, just consider going to have a look at what your privacy settings are set to be, and change them if you think necessary. So here's some examples. You could say, okay, only my contacts are going to see that information about me and my profile photo and things like that. But worth having a look through and worth knowing what your privacy settings actually are. So top tips then, staying safe. Know how to block other users. As we've said, it's a bit weird. You have to add them to your contacts. Talk to your parents as well about how you're using WhatsApp and the sorts of conversations you're having and who's in the various groups that you belong to. Know how to change your group settings so you can't be added in by other people. That's a very powerful tool if you find that someone's really annoying, keep adding you to groups that you don't want to be in. As we said, consider changing privacy settings, and above all, whenever you post or share anything, just be kind, be considerate to other people's needs in terms of where you're posting it to and why you're posting it. Okay, treat everyone online the same way you would like to be treated, and you won't go far wrong. Don't, as we've said, post pictures of other people or forward on other people's comments without their permissions. And obviously, if you think about it as, if you wouldn't show the message that you're about to post to your parents or your teacher, then probably it's not a good idea to post it. But obviously you've got to use your judgment in that one, because obviously with friends you might say things in a funny way, but just be careful the way you say things, because sometimes they can be misunderstood. The group thing, as we said, is the big issue. Don't set up groups for your whole tutor groups. Don't give everybody that joins admin permissions, because that's just asking for trouble. If you need 1 or 2 administrators, great. If you're going to have a group of 10, 12, 15 of you that are in a rugby team or in a football squad, netball, whatever, great. But don't go just adding a whole tutor group because it's a tutor group, because it's not really relevant and not everybody wants to join in that conversation. And don't expect people to join in a conversation just because they're physically in your tutor group. They may not want to be in the group on WhatsApp, and you need to respect that decision, not necessarily think, oh, they're a bit off because they haven't joined in my group. It's their choice. It's their world. And if they don't want to belong to that group, then that's their right. So don't go giving them hassle about it. Be careful with large groups. As I said, a rugby squad of 15, great. Or even if you've got, maybe you've got a bigger team and you're at a group of 20 and you're talking about what's going on in matches, that makes total sense. You've all got a shared common interest. You're not probably using it the whole time, but when matches are coming up or after matches, you've got a few comments to make. Brilliant. But as I said, if you're thinking about going, right, we have a whole year group, it just is crazy and it's a disaster waiting to happen. So don't do it. And if you do find something like the large group with links to join, just be very cautious about it. I mean, I join a few large groups from events that happen at the weekend, but after the weekend's over, the group's gone. I remove myself and the group gets deleted and it's out of the way. But it was just for that short time. Don't try and stay part of groups for long periods of time where hundreds of people are always doing things, and you get this thing like saying 180 messages. It's ridiculous. It's not the way WhatsApp really should be used. Okay, so summary then. Think basically before you post online. Ask yourself, could someone misinterpret what I'm actually posting? Could someone feel hurt or a bit disrespected? Am I posting in anger or am I posting in jest? Who's going to be reading it? And am I really showing a bad side of myself, or am I trying to be positive? So it's that keyword think, isn't it? So here's another way of thinking about it. Is it true, helpful, inspiring? Is it necessary? And most of all, is it kind? But another way of thinking about that is to say, what am I doing and why? So if you think, yeah, I'm doing this for a reason, and this is the people it's going to, and this is how people might interpret this, I'm posting this for a joke, or I'm posting this to communicate some information, then fantastic. But just think about what am I doing and why, and you won't go far wrong. That's it. Sorry to drone on so long, but hopefully that's going to give you a bit more advice in terms of your use and safe use of WhatsApp.